Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. Rebirth of the wonderful years of the Tang Dynasty. The protagonist Lin Feng was struck by lightning during a hunting trip, and his soul pierced through a young man with the same name and surname during the Zhenguan period of the Tang Dynasty. The protagonist's soul merged with that of the original owner. At this point, the protagonist discovers that the original protagonist has a beautiful wife and a lovely daughter. Helpless, the protagonist relies on his all-around leisure system to start a variety of happy lives in the Tang Dynasty, such as farming, hunting, doting on children, and traveling to the seaFeilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Was struck by lightning. Mysterious bead. Seeking fresh flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lin Feng heard someone calling him, but no matter what, he couldn't open his eyes. He felt his eyelids very heavy. At the same time, he could also feel as if someone was constantly shaking his body, as if there were still cries. But Lin Feng ignored these things because he thought he was already dead. Because he can vividly remember everything that happened before he fell into a coma. This reminded him of his unfortunate experience today. The process that caused him to faint today is as follows. This is a season in late autumn, with yellow grass and withered leaves covering the mountains. As humans and animals pass by, their feet on those withered leaves make a crisp and continuous sound. Lin Feng, who was already 20.8 years old, carried an old-fashioned hunting rifle and struggled to walk through the jungle of wild grass as usual. Lin Feng is a nationally licensed hunter, and he is also an orphan, so it can be said that he is a lonely family. The reason why he was able to become a legitimate hunter in the modern era of gun prohibition is that he joined the army at the age of 18. Perhaps his talent was very good. In just 1 year, he stood out among the new recruits and was noticed by a mysterious instructor from a higher authority, so he naturally joined this department. After Lin Feng joined this department, he realized that it was a department dedicated to training Special Forces kings. Its main task is to deal with major events that endanger national security. After Lin Feng joined, he lived up to expectations and became a qualified Special Forces king in just 4 years. He is also the youngest Special Forces king since the establishment of this department. After becoming the king of war, Lin Feng carried out hundreds of missions, big and small, and contributed his own strength to protecting the security of the country. As the saying goes, if you often walk by the river, you won't get your shoes wet. Moreover, being a soldier is a highly dangerous profession. We can live a peaceful life because someone is carrying a heavy burden on us and moving forward. Lin Feng was irreversibly injured in a fierce battle with enemy saboteurs and was unable to charge to the front line of danger. The superior originally intended to transfer Lin Feng to the civilian department. But after careful consideration, Lin Feng felt that he couldn't do this job with his own personality, so he had no choice but to refuse the kindness of his superiors. In order not to cause trouble for the team, Lin Feng chose to retire and return to his hometown to recuperate. The legitimate document in Lin Feng's hand as a hunter was obtained when he was discharged from the military. His superiors considered that Lin Feng's hometown was located in the northeast, and he wanted to make a living by searching for herbs in the mountains after his discharge. Therefore, they helped Lin Feng obtain this document, making it convenient for him to use a hunting gun for self-defense. So although he has been injured and discharged from the military for 4 years now, he is not dizzy and agile, no different from some young people of the same age. It's just a far cry from his skills when he was in the military, so he goes into the depths of the mountains several times a month. He is from northeast China, so when he goes hunting, he always wears a yellow headscarf and a handsome hunter suit, and only shows a little hair at his temples. His dark national face was engraved with traces of time, and on his broad forehead, scars crawled one after another, like ripples of water. Every time he enters the mountain, he always focuses on the front, pursing his lips tightly, which gives him a dignified and solemn demeanor. In the past 4 years, he made a living by hunting and collecting medicine, but now in modern times, there are many precious and rare wild animals that are protected by national laws and have become protected animals, and people are no longer allowed to hunt them. In addition, Lin Feng's own injury has worsened, and his body is not as good as before. He is no longer like when he just retired from the military. At that time, he not only had the youthful vigor of a young man, but also his injuries were not particularly serious. He had a strong body like an ordinary person, which could provide sufficient physical strength to support him in hunting. So since his injuries worsened a year ago, he no longer went into the mountains to hunt, but to see the scenery in the mountains. Then he used some traditional Chinese medicine knowledge and herbal processing methods he learned when he was a child to pick some valuable herbs from deep mountains. Then, after self-processing, it is sold to pharmacies to earn a certain amount of money to maintain one's livelihood. So every time he went into the mountains and forests this year, it was not for hunting, but more like enjoying life. At this moment, in front of Lin Feng, there was a black and a yellow dog walking, and it could be seen that both of them were old. These two dogs were both bought by Lin Feng from an old hunter in the village when he returned from his military service 4 years ago. The old hunter was too old to bring his dog into the mountains, so he happened to need them, so he sold them to Lin Feng. The black one is called Dahe, and the yellow one is called Dahuang. In no time, Lin Feng quickly walked to the edge of a high mountain cliff. Then he looked from the edge of the cliff, and what appeared before Lin Feng was a mountain peak like a delicate lotus flower. A series of verdant mountains are winding, and looking ahead from afar, endless hills rise and fall. The vast forest is dotted with clusters of small yellow flowers in the middle of the green forest. These mountains are stacked one by one, from far to near, with lush green mountains. The Bo cloud is really beautiful. To the left of Lin Feng is a canyon blocked by wildflowers, filled with protruding rocks and cliffs. Occasionally, a few wild goat calls come from afar. Underneath the cliff were scattered barren rocks, which looked even older and uglier in the sunlight, as if they were some bald heads with scabs. The small hill below is bare, covered in stone bumps of all sizes. Don't say there are no decent trees, even the weeds growing in the crevices of the stones. If you count them carefully, you can count how many there are. Not far to the right of Lin Feng is a large lake. The lake water is calm like a mirror, and a warm breeze blows over it, causing waves on the surface of the lake, like a mischievous little person. The lake is clear and emerald green, shining brightly under the sunlight. The surface of the lake is like a shimmering golden garment, incredibly magnificent. Looking at the beautiful scenery in front of him, Lin Feng suddenly felt extremely happy in his heart. Lin Feng quietly felt the beauty of nature and stayed on the cliff shore for a long time when suddenly the sky darkened. Immediately after, Lin Feng felt waves of strong winds blowing past, and the dark clouds in the sky began to roll and surge, coming from all directions. Just now, the sky was bright with sunshine and clear skies, but now it has become the rhythm of rain. As a hunter, Lin Feng knows that the weather in the mountains and forests is unpredictable, which is also one of the reasons why the jungle can be very dangerous. Lin Feng, who was interrupted by the weather, had no choice but to call on Dahe and Dahuang to rush home. When Lin Feng walked halfway up the road, Dahe took a sniff at the withered branches, then suddenly looked up to the east, raised his neck, and ran away. At this moment, the rhubarb seemed to have also smelled something. It raised its head high and sniffed in the air, opened its mouth and let out a cry. It also chased after Dahe and ran away. Lin Feng heard its roar. I was surprised for a moment, but I was very worried in my heart. Because Dahe and Dahuang are no longer in their prime, they are old enough to lack 1/10 of their hunting ability during their peak years. But he knew that hunting dogs were different from other dogs, and they spent their entire lives hunting with their owners. So their destiny is to live for hunting, until in the end, they die heroically in the mountains for hunting. In the hearts of all hunters, this should be the best destination for hunting dogs. He cannot stop the nature of Dahe and Dahuang, because if hunting dogs are not allowed to hunt, in no time, the hunting dog will end up feeling depressed because it cannot fully display its abilities in the mountains and forests. So Lin Feng doesn't want to stop them either. He thought of this and quickly picked up the shotgun on his back, carried it in his hand, followed quickly, and walked towards the direction where the two dogs were running. Not far away, I saw a row of wild boars running towards the opposite post. There are more than 10 pigs in this group, with the small one in front and the big one behind. They run in groups towards one place, and wherever they pass, withered leaves roll up on the ground and fly in the sky. As soon as the pig herd passed, 2 hunting dogs chased them up the hill, and the big black boar running at the front fell to the last big boar, which was a mouthful. In an instant, the sounds of 2 dogs intertwined, filled with anger. 1 yellow and 1 black dog fiercely killed the wild boar. This big boar has a huge body size and weighs over 300 pounds. Although it is strong enough, its speed is not fast. De pounced and landed it right on the big boar's buttocks. The pain caused the big boar's buttocks to tilt upwards, then turned around and thrust his head fiercely. De immediately dodged the fatal blow from the wild boar with his cat waist to the side. The wild boar failed with a single blow and was about to turn around to catch up with the herd when a yellow shadow pressed down. The wild boar could only watch helplessly as the herd of pigs walked away and eventually disappeared into the forest. The rhubarb took a fierce bite and happened to bite the ear of the wild boar. The wild boar let out a painful sound and lifted its head. With a muffled sound, the nearly 100-pound yellow dog, unable to dodge the attack of the wild boar, was unfortunately pulled away by its attack. Unfortunately, Zhenguan's stomach was cut open by the long fangs of the big boar, and his intestines flowed out, causing blood to flow all over the ground. After struggling several times, Rhubarb couldn't stand up again, and finally lay motionless on the ground, dead. The big wild boar wanted to charge up again and fly the body of the big yellow. Seeing this, Big Black came behind the big wild boar. On the agile side of the dog's body, the dog's head leaned forward and opened its mouth, biting into the wild boar's buttocks. Ah! Roar, roar! The wild boar suffered from pain and screamed in agony. It could no longer care about the yellow dog and immediately turned its head to the right. Suddenly turning to the left, the pig's body weighing over 300 pounds spun around with a loud roar, and it forcefully threw the big black hanging from itself out. Then De followed in the footsteps of De Huang and lay motionless on the ground. It's over. It's all over. Lin Feng, who had already run to the post, closed his eyes and suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Lin Feng wanted to kill the big wild boar in front of him and seek revenge for the 2 dogs in a state of sorrow and excitement. So he quickly stepped forward and fired a shot at the wild boar. Due to the dim sky, although the bullet hit the wild boar, it missed its vital point. So it resulted in the wild boar not dying. The wild boar turned around, constantly breathing white air in its nose. Funner and funner make a loud noise. A pair of small eyes stared fixedly at the culprit shooting at it, then lowered their head and charged towards Lin Feng. Without the restraint of the 2 dogs, the wild boar rushed towards Lin Feng, which prevented him from having the chance to shoot a second shot. Lin Feng was suddenly pulled out by the wild boar 1 meter away, and fell to the ground with a loud bang. Lin Feng fainted in the moment he was swept away. At the same time as Lin Feng fainted, in the next moment, a series of lightning bolts swept across the dark sky, each one hitting Lin Feng who had been whipped away. And in the first lightning strike on Lin Feng's body, there was somehow a colorful bead inside, appearing mysterious and eerie. But at this moment, Lin Feng had already fainted and was destined not to see this scene. Quickly, Lin Feng and Zhu Zi were submerged in the thunder and lightning. The continuous thunder and lightning startled the wild boar who wanted to charge up and arch people again. Then it charged out of the battle group and fled. After an unknown amount of time, in the quiet jungle, only 2 dog corpses were left, and there was also an immature person with scars that had been scorched black by lightning. It can be shown that there was a fierce struggle here, but the mysterious bead in the lightning has long disappeared. Chapter 2. Awakening. Being rescued by someone. Seeking flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Of course, the restoration of perceptual modern Lin Feng is unknown. While he was struck by lightning while hunting in modern times, he was in a remote small mountain village during the ancient Tang Dynasty. At this moment it was night, and an unpleasant song sounded from the village, appearing particularly piercing in the quiet night. What sounds better is the singing, but what doesn't sound good is a drunkard howling like a wolf. In no time, the man walked to the big banyan tree at the entrance of the village. At this moment, the sky suddenly flashed with lightning and thunder. Under the moonlight, under the illumination of the lightning, it was clear that this was a man in his 20s, about 1.8 meters tall, walking in a figure 8. The man was walking drunkenly on the village road at this moment, accompanied by the barking of several frightened local dogs, which made people feel that it was not so coordinated no matter how they looked. The man walking drunkenly on the village road is the protagonist of this novel, Lin Feng. At the same time, he is also known as the first lazy and idle person in the entire Taoyuan village. Suddenly, a lightning bolt flashed across the night sky and struck the man. Then the man fainted. So the current result is the modern forest breeze, at the moment of being arched by wild boars and struck by lightning. In the small mountain village of the ancient Tang Dynasty, a young man with the same name and surname was also struck by lightning at the same time. Then, amidst the modern thunder and lightning, that mysterious pearl carried the soul and memory of Lin Feng, who was 28 years old, and traveled back to the ancient Tang Dynasty, leaving Lin Feng's mind. In the end, Lin Feng, who used to live in the ancient Tang Dynasty, had his soul and memories absorbed and replaced by Lin Feng, whose soul had penetrated from the 21st century. It's just a modern forest style that restores consciousness, and I don't know what happened afterwards. After an unknown amount of time, it began to rain in the sky, with raindrops hitting Lin Feng's face bit by bit. Soon, Lin Feng felt someone around him constantly shaking him. Lin Feng couldn't help but lift his heavy eyelids, but he was soon completely stunned by the sight before him. Because he found himself lying in the arms of a middle-aged woman. And this woman is still shouting. "My son! Wake up quickly. If you go, I won't live either." Someone around her was also sobbing softly. Lin Feng was a bit confused at this moment, although he couldn't immediately fully reflect the scene he saw in his eyes. But he can hear it. My mother is a lonely person. In addition, my mother has already left. Why are there still people who call themselves sons? Are these old ladies mistaken for the wrong person? At this moment, someone next to him noticed that Lin Feng had opened his eyes and excitedly shouted. "Dog Egg is awake, everyone, look. Dog Egg is awake." Lin Feng didn't have time to think much about this scene, so he wanted to speak out and curse. But when Lin Feng was about to speak up and scold the middle-aged woman holding him. It is possible that this body was hit by lightning, which caused unknown damage to it, causing Lin Feng to immediately turn black in front of him and fall into a coma. The shout of the person in front had just fallen, and someone next to them also said. This was all struck by lightning, and surprisingly, there was nothing wrong with my whole body. Moreover, I managed to come back to life. It's really amazing. If it weren't for what I saw with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. 2 years ago, I heard about a town not far from us where someone was struck by lightning. However, the person who was struck by lightning turned black all over their body and couldn't even recognize them. The first speaker then said to the middle-aged woman who was still holding Lin Feng's body and feeling sad, feeling that her son had died. "Dog Egg mother, why are you crying? Look. Your dog Egg is still alive. He's okay, so don't cry anymore. It's raining now. The most important thing now is to ask the big guy to send him back to your house first." There is only his wife and a 3.5-year-old girl in Gooden's house, so there may be no way to take care of the unconscious Gooden. Gooden Yang heard someone say this and quickly got up to confirm that her son still had breath coming out of his nose. Knowing that my son is really not dead yet, he is still alive. After discussing with a few people happily, in the darkness, Gooden Yang and her group braved the dripping rain and hurriedly carried Lin Feng towards their own home in the village. After Lin Feng fell asleep, the colorful pearl in his body's mind flickered in his mind. This bead is about the size of a ping-pong ball. The bead continuously emitted a colorful light, feeling as if repairing the damage to this body caused by lightning, appearing mysterious and eerie. After everyone rushed back to the middle-aged woman's house, a few people gently placed Lin Feng on the bed. Lin Feng said it was a bed, but in reality it was just a few broken wooden boards, casually stacked together on a shelf. The grass mat on top has long been rotten and looks yellow and black. After Lin Feng lay down, the whole bed was swaying and creaking, as if it was about to fall apart. Due to rushing back just now, when it rained, everyone carried Lin Feng and couldn't take shelter. So the middle-aged woman saw that her son was still dripping water on his body and clothes in bed, and said to a middle-aged man, "Dad, go and bring over a piece of your clothes first, and then change them for Xiaofeng. Then dry Xiaofeng's body and bring me the wet clothes that have been changed, and I will take them to wash." "Okay, I'll go get it now." After hearing his wife's instructions, Lin Xueren turned around and left. Quickly entered another room and brought one of his own clothes. I saw patches stacked on this piece of clothing, making it look like a beggar's outfit. But in this era of the Tang Dynasty, it was not bad for ordinary people to have a change of clothes. There were not so many requirements. Many people only have 2 or 3 pieces of clothing at home. A piece of clothing is worn by several members of the family in rotation, and it may not even be possible to buy a new one for 3 to 5 years. Even worse, people aged 17 or 18 still have their buttocks exposed, which is also true. As the saying goes, new 3 years, old 3 years, sewing and patching another 3 years. This piece of clothing is really tattered, but it still looks quite clean. At first glance, the clothes have already changed color after washing. After helping Lin Feng change clothes and dry his body, Lin Xueren sat by the bed and watched over him. After a while, the middle-aged woman who had finished washing Lin Feng's clothes came in and asked Lin Xueren, "Husband, how is Xiaofeng doing now? Do you want to invite Dr. Li from the town to come and show him tonight?" Lin Feng's mother had a worried expression on her face. Father Lin said, "I want to ask Dr. Li to take a look. When you came back just now, I had already gone to call his second uncle Shui and took the donkey cart from the village to invite him. I estimate it's already at the village entrance now." As soon as Lin's father finished speaking, he heard the voices of 2 people outside the house. Then, his second uncle Lin Shui pulled an old man carrying a medicine box in. This old man is the famous Dr. Li in Taoyuan town. Upon seeing this, Lin Xueren hurriedly welcomed him and explained Lin Feng's situation to Dr. Li. After hearing this, Dr. Li gave Lin Feng a pulse. Dr. Li helped Lin Feng finish his pulse and knew that Lin Feng was just physically weak, and there were no other major problems. So after explaining to Lin's parents, Lin Feng only needed to rest more and his body would naturally recover. After explaining, he asked Lin Feng's second uncle to send him back. Lin's parents knew that their son was fine, so they felt a lot of peace of mind. Lin's mother made a decision to let Lin's father go back to rest and guard her son on her own. After all, it's already late at night, and Lin's father will have to get up tomorrow morning to work in the fields. If I don't sleep, I'll have to do such heavy farm work tomorrow, and my body won't be able to handle it. Lin's father saw that Lin's mother had made a decision, so he had to return to his own room to rest. The next morning, the air was particularly fresh, shrouded in mist, nourishing all things on this earth. The rice in the fields and the green grass on the edge of the fields are both covered in dew, crystal clear, and as bright as pearls. "Xiaofeng, You must not have anything to do. You are really a miserable person, blessed by Bodhisattva. You must wake up. At this point, perhaps through the restoration of the mysterious pearl, Lin Feng regained his ability to think in his mind. Lin Feng thought to himself, this time it was really a disaster. I was knocked unconscious by a wild boar, and it must have been this family sitting by the bed who saved me from the side of the wild boar. In the decades he lived, he heard many people getting lost in the mountains and forests, or picking herbs. After encountering a fierce beast, one may lose their life or fall off a cliff and become dizzy. Then at this moment, someone happened to pass by the story of saving them. Even when Lin Feng was hunting on the mountain himself, he saved 3 people in 4 years. So when I saw the dying wild boar under its fangs, I happened to be saved by someone. Lin Feng didn't feel anything unexpected either. After understanding the reason why he was still alive, Lin Feng immediately thought of De He and De Huang, who had died fighting against the wild boar. These 2 hunting dogs, which had accompanied him for 4 years, immediately felt heartache. After this family saved themselves, they should have already buried Da He and Rhubarb in peace. Wait a moment, you must ask yourself to see if they have buried Da He and Rhubarb, and then thank them for their life-saving kindness. Although I have suffered irreversible serious injuries, no normal person wants to die from an accident, right? I should still have a long life. After my body is injured, I am much weaker than my peers. I can't just become a soldier, and my life is not in danger. I haven't started enjoying my retirement life yet. How could you be willing to die like this? With one's own physical condition, if there are no accidents, it is not a big problem to live to be over 60 years old. Although I am not married or have children, I am a lonely family, but I am just like Barbie Q, so this is too bad. Chapter 3. Making Movies. System First Appearance. Seeking Fresh Flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Note: it is purely fictional and only intended to add a little fun to the readers. If there are any discrepancies with historical events and characters, please do not blame the reader. This book will always use the money conversion ratio below to save the trouble of making changes back and forth. Readers should understand. Firstly, the author is unclear about the current value of money during the Zhenguan period of the Tang Dynasty, as well as the prices at that time. Therefore, the author sets it as 1 liang of gold equals 10 liang of silver, 1 liang of silver equals 10 qian of silver, 1 liang of silver equals 1 guan of copper coins, 1 guan of copper coins equals 1,000 copper coins, and 1 yuan equals 1 RMB in 2020. The price level is calculated at the modern 2000 level, and the monthly wage for a waiter in a county restaurant is 1,600 won, while the price of pork is around 10 won. Lin Feng felt relieved and wanted to get up because he felt like his waist was hurting from sleeping. The bed under me is too hard, I can't even straighten my waist. In addition, Lin Feng also wants to see if he was injured when he was pulled away by a big boar. If injured, how is the injury going? My face, which is loved by many beautiful women, may not be handsome, but it is full of determination. But he had already exerted all his strength and was unable to get up. I only feel soreness and pain all over my body, and I can't move at all. I was just able to move my 10 fingers slightly. Lin Feng tried hard to open his eyes, but in the end, he couldn't open them. Although he couldn't open his eyes, his mind was still clear. He felt dizzy, as if he heard someone talking to him in his ear. And he vaguely heard someone praying next to the bed. At first, he didn't hear what the person beside the bed was saying, but after a while, the voice in Lin Feng's ear gradually became clear. The person sitting by the bed said, "Oh my goodness, as soon as I kowtow to you here, I must bless Xiaofeng to wake up." After an unknown amount of time, Lin Feng felt the strength to open his eyes. So he slowly opened his eyes, and the first thing that caught his eye was a dilapidated house, with some parts of the walls covered with thatch and mud. The adobe on the wall is about to fall off in some places. The house has no suspended ceiling, exposing the roof and beams. There are several baskets hanging from the beam of the house. In the dark room, although it is daytime, it feels like night. Lin Mu, who was sitting by the bed waiting, heard the commotion and looked towards Lin Feng. Chen Toyan saw Lin Feng open her eyes and couldn't help but exclaim happily. "Xiaofeng, you're awake, you're really awake." Then he said to Lin Feng, "Xiaofeng, don't drink so much alcohol in the future. You should be honest and down to earth. If there's anything you can't take it easy on, just tell Wei Nyang not to hold it in your heart and then do something foolish. Even if life is difficult, we must work hard to live." Lin's mother and all of them believe that Lin Feng ran to the big banyan tree at the village entrance on a thunderstorm day because he couldn't bear it and wanted to commit suicide, which led to thunder hitting him. After hearing these inexplicable words, Lin Feng felt a bit puzzled and turned his head in confusion to look at the skinny middle-aged woman in front of him. After seeing the middle-aged woman facing him, Lin Feng was completely confused. "I saw this middle-aged woman wearing tattered clothes, with patches stacked on top of each other. Her face was waxy yellow, dry and thin, with wrinkles crawling all over her cheeks and a face full of vicissitudes. Her silver hair was haphazardly pressed against her head, indicating that she was a very hard-working woman." Perhaps Chen Shulian's shout was too loud just now, and after a few seconds, everyone quickly ran in. Outside, greeting the members of Lin Feng's tribe who came to visit, many of them walked into Lin Feng's room under the leadership of his father. After hearing Lin Mu's last sentence, one of them continued, "Yes, it's better to live than to die. Xiaofeng, why can't you think about it?" After hearing this, Lin Feng didn't speak up to answer them because he had just gained a little strength and it was difficult for him to speak up, let alone explain to them. At this moment, Lin Feng looked around again and saw that among the people who came in, including Lin's father, they were all wearing slightly tattered clothes. Some people even have clothes that don't fit well, some have clothes that have changed color after washing, and some have patches sewn together. Even many people don't even have shoes, some of them have shoes with their toes and heels exposed. Many middle-aged boys only wear a pair of patched shorts. There are also those with bare arms and feet, sunburned like loaches. Some children are completely naked. Most people's clothes are white linen. The feeling that gives Lin Feng is like scenes from ancient costume dramas and movies he has watched before. Are you making a movie? Lin Feng couldn't help but exhaust all the strength he had on his body. Lin Feng really can't figure it out, there can't be such a poor place in China in the 21st century. It's okay to be poor alone, but it's a bit strange for a group of people to dress like this. So Lin Feng can only think of the possibility that everyone is acting, he really can't think of any other possibilities. Lin Feng opened his eyes and turned his head a few times. After saying a word with all his might, it made Lin Feng feel dizzy again and unconsciously want to fall asleep again. My whole body is sore and weak, with dizziness and headache. I don't know if it's a sequela after being struck by lightning or because I was drenched in rain last night. Lin Feng's mind was buzzing like an explosion. He is in a daze, his eyes are blurred, and he just wants to sleep. His two eyelids were as heavy as a weighing weight, and he couldn't open them even after trying to open them a few times. Finally, Lin Feng thought to himself, what's wrong with him? Now that he has been rescued, he can't die anyway. Why don't we just have a good night's sleep? Let's watch the sun tomorrow. When everyone saw Lin Feng sleeping on the bed again, they quickly asked Lin Mu, how is Dog Egg's body? Is it okay? Lin Laishan, the village chief and clan leader of the Lin family, asked Lin's mother if she knew the reason why Dog Egg couldn't take it seriously. But Lin Laishan suddenly remembered that when he saw Lin Feng just now, he only said one sentence. How could Lin Mu possibly know the reason why Lin Feng couldn't take it seriously? So he immediately changed his tone and said to Lin's father and mother. After this Dog Egg wakes up, you can ask him carefully again. Lin Laishan said regretfully. Fortunately, Lin Feng was rescued, Otherwise Lin's father and mother would not have been so sad. After all, Lin Feng is the only son of the two. In addition, Lin Feng has always been just idle and doesn't like to work. I haven't done anything bad either. So in Lin Lishuan's heart, Lin Feng is essentially a good child. If something really happens, it would be a pity. Lin's parents were deeply moved when they heard everyone's concern for their son. Chen Shilian loudly said to the crowd, "Xiao Feng is fine. We already called Dr. Li over last night to see him. Dr. Li said he is just weak and will be able to recover after a few days of rest." After hearing Lin's words, everyone dispersed. After Lin's father dispersed the tribe and returned, Lin's mother walked into Lin Feng's room and asked him why he still didn't go to work in the field. Upon hearing this, Lin's father responded to his mother while picking up a wooden hoe from the stove and carrying it on his shoulder, preparing to go to work in his own field. Lin Feng was really able to sleep. He slept until noon the next day, when everyone went to work in the fields. After knowing that his son was not a big problem, Lin Shueren's family only kept his youngest daughter, while Lin Shaoqing took care of Lin Feng at home. Occasionally, a few children who haven't gone to work in the fields also come to Lin's house to watch the excitement. In the morning of the next day, Lin Feng wanted to open his eyes, but his double eyelids were as heavy as Mount Taishan Mountain, so he could only continue to fall asleep. He vaguely heard a soft voice calling out to him, "Brother, brother." Lin Feng, who was sleeping in bed, had a reaction when he heard it. "Water, water." He softly called out for the sound of needing to drink water. "Brother, do you want to drink water? Then I'll go and help you get it. You can wait a moment." Shaoqing, who silently guarded Lin Feng's side, saw her brother finally react and quickly stroked Lin Feng's head with her small hand, responding softly. Then Shaoqing quickly got up and ran excitedly all the way to the kitchen, carrying a broken pottery bowl. After scooping a small half bowl of water from the water tank, she carefully brought it over. Then he took the small bowl of water that had been sprinkled so little and gently approached Lin Feng's mouth, saying, "Brother, the water is here. You can drink it." Lin Feng drank the small bowl of water that Shaoqing had brought him in a daze. Not long after Lin Feng finished drinking water, the water slightly restored his body's energy, but he still fell between drowsiness and wakefulness. Just as he fell asleep again, the colorful beads in his body and mind shone brightly, and then Lin Feng's mind kept ringing with electronic sounds. Didi, the system has detected primates that meet the recognition criteria for this product. Didi, detecting language, successfully generating Huaxia language. Didi, during system implantation, 10%. 20%. Chapter 4. Memory Fusion Soul pierces the Tang Dynasty. Seeking freshness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shaoqing nervously watched as her brother finished drinking half of the bowl of water she brought. Seeing her brother still asleep, her worries hung on her delicate little face. Shaoqing quickly placed the pottery bowl on the table and reached out to grab his brother's hand, quietly feeling the temperature in his palm. "I hope my brother won't get a fever from being drenched in the rain. Brother, you need to get better soon. I saw that my parents were almost worried about you yesterday. If you have something to do, my brother, my father and mother will have to be heartbroken to death." Shaoqing sat next to Lin Feng, muttering incessantly, from Lin Feng's past to yesterday when he was struck by lightning. At noon, after Lin Feng fell asleep, he woke up. Shaoqing sitting by the bed heard the commotion and asked, "Brother, are you awake?" As she spoke, Shaoqing reached out her little hand and placed it in front of Lin Feng on the grass mat, shaking it. She frowned and stared at her brother's head carefully. But at this moment, Lin Feng, as soon as he woke up, opened a pair of confused eyes and completely immersed himself in his own world. The crowing of chickens, barking of dogs, and crying of children came from my ears, and then I stared blankly at the thatched roof. Thinking of everything he saw twice when he woke up yesterday, Lin Feng didn't know where he was. "Where exactly is this place?" Why am I like this? Is it possible to return to the film and television city after being knocked unconscious by a wild boar while hunting in the mountains? But what is the current situation? Ah, my head hurts so much. Lin Feng was mentally active, but still couldn't resist the splitting headache in his head. He quickly extended his hands to his head, trying to push the pain out of his head. Xiaoqing heard her brothers shouting and quickly asked, "Brother, what's wrong with you? Do you still have a headache? I'll blow it for you, and my aunt said it won't hurt anymore." Xiaoqing looked at her brother's painful expression and movements, knowing that his head was starting to hurt again. But at this moment, Lin Feng was already tormented by this piercing pain and wanted to commit suicide, so he did not respond to Xiaoqing's question. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt a series of images flooding into his mind, playing like a fast-forward movie. But the massive images and memories flooded in, making him even more distressed. It seemed like a century, but in reality, it was only 2/4 of an hour before the excruciating torment in his mind gradually came to an end. Lin Feng put down his hands that hugged his head, as if he had just experienced life and death, and was reborn from adversity. Brother, what's wrong with you? Is your head still hurting?" Xiaoqing has been lying on the edge of the grass mat, quietly watching his brother's every move. Although Xiaoqing didn't know how his brother was doing, he always remembered the instructions from his parents, silently guarding his brother's side, thinking that his brother needed to get better soon. Tears kept swirling in Xiaoqing's worried eyes. After the headache, Lin Feng's mind flooded with a large amount of information, and memories of the present and present collided like two armies fighting, quickly merging and interweaving together. This has greatly developed Lin Feng's brain domain, reaching an unprecedented level. If the brain development of a normal person is only 1% to 2%, then Lin Feng's brain development is estimated to be 10%, and may even be higher. Lin Feng's mind began to gradually clear up, and some inexplicable memories rushed in, temporarily occupying his mind. Have I traveled through time or soul-piercing? Lin Feng, with his eyes closed, thought about the various images flashing quickly in his mind. He couldn't believe that all of this would happen to him. This is not scientific. Although he is a retired soldier and an orphan, in the 21st century with advanced information technology, as long as he has a mobile phone and TV, he can still learn about many things on the internet and in society. Before joining the military, and after retiring from the military, Lin Feng had also read a lot of online literature, knowing that beside some online articles with such plot settings, there would be no such thing as time travel. In an instant, he felt like he had been struck by lightning again. The probability of crossing was so small that he encountered it, which was much lower than the probability of buying lottery tickets, so he found it difficult to believe. After lifting his hands, he couldn't help but say, "Grass, it seems that I have really become much younger." He reached out his hands and looked in front of him, almost startled enough to jump up. Yes, he saw a young man's hand, white and tender, different from his hand that was covered in scars in his previous life as a soldier. And he also knows very well that this his mother is his hand now. Then Lin Feng couldn't help but pinch himself hard and said, "Ah, it hurts. So I still have consciousness now, it's not an illusion, it's not a dream. Done. I was just hunting and was knocked unconscious by a wild boar, so I didn't have to travel back to the Tang Dynasty all at once. This is just too ridiculous. This is more than 1,000 years ago from modern times. What international joke is God making? Over 1,000 years ago, there were many commoners who couldn't eat enough and lived in their nests. Many of them lived in adobe bungalows, where mosquitoes and lice were infested and they couldn't bite themselves to death. If you had known earlier that you would travel back to ancient times, then you must remember more about the technology that was already outdated in modern times but had not yet been invented in ancient times. Such as handmade soap technology, high alcohol steaming technology, crystal salt technology, perfume technology, cement technology, gunpowder technology. In the future, I can also become an ancient richest person or a big shot. But it's too late to say anything now. Oh my goodness, how did you bring yourself into this era? Ordinary people in this era are short of food and clothing, and their thin clothes and tattered clothes are so hard on their lives. Lin Feng in the 21st century couldn't help but ask in his heart, can I still go back? After asking, the result of, I can't go back, immediately came to mind. But then I realized that in modern times, I am also alone, carefree, and without any regrets, so in the end, I didn't feel so conflicted. After all, after traveling to the Tang Dynasty, with parents and wives and daughters accompanying me, I am no longer alone. How wonderful! Plus, no matter how much you think, it's useless. Let's settle for it now. Finally, Lin Feng could only accept the fact that he wanted to live in the Tang Dynasty with this body. The Lin Feng appearing below refers to the Lin Feng of the 21st century, and the Lin Feng of the Tang Dynasty is replaced by the original owner, which is easy to distinguish. Please understand, readers. After absorbing and integrating the memories of two people, it was found that modern Lin Feng knew that the body he entered was also called Lin Feng. He is a young man who is currently only 22 years old. And this Lin Feng is also the top-ranked lazy person in their Taoyuan village, idle and not working all day long. Lin Feng thought to himself, so this body is also called Lin Feng. Fortunately, it hasn't changed its name, at least there's no need to change it anymore. But this family is also too poor, isn't it? What to eat but not to eat, what to wear but not to wear, this is not a place for people to live. Even a thatched cottage is only 2 rooms, this. Lin Feng's mind flashed with various scenes of the original owner's life in this life. After watching these scenes, Lin Feng suddenly felt a sense of being played with by the heavens. Such a difficult life made Lin Feng feel bitter. At the same time, Lin Feng also knew why the big boar knocked him unconscious and woke up here. Since the separation of the original owner's parents from the original owner 3 years ago, the original owner has become even lazier due to no one taking care of him or some other reasons. Not only does he not do farm work, but he is also addicted to gambling and drinking. He gets drunk every night before coming home. The beautiful daughter.In-law in the original owner's family couldn't control him. If his wife dares to say a few more words about him, the original owner will even beat his wife, making his beautiful daughter.In-law afraid of him and afraid to control him. So last night he was originally gambling with people in a small tavern in Taoyuan County. His luck was very good last night, winning 100 or 81, and he was very proud in his heart. So he invited his gambling friends to drink a small drink in the small tavern, which was mostly midnight. He drank more than a pound of big roasted wheat and got drunk. Only then did he know that he should go home and sleep. So the original owner slowly walked back to the village from Taoyuan County, and just as he reached the big banyan tree at the entrance of the village, he was struck by a lightning bolt. Finally, there was the story of being sent home by Lin Mu and the villagers at the beginning of the previous text. Speaking of the original owner of this life, there are 3 siblings. The original owner is the only son of the family, with an older sister and a younger sister. Sister Lin Fengxian has already married and moved to a village called Taohua Village on the edge of Taoyuan County. She has a son and a daughter with her brother.In-law. My younger sister Lin Xiaoqing is still under age, 12 years younger than the original owner. She is only 10 years old now. Since her parents separated from the original owner, my younger sister Lin Xiaoqing has been living with them. In ancient times, it was emphasized that there were many sons and many blessings, but who said that the original owner only had one boy in his family. So Lin's father, Lin Xueran, and Lin's mother, Chen Xiulian, were very fond of the original owner, and it can even be said that they doted on him. Although the original owner was a down-to-earth young man, he was only in his 20s. Young men in villages as big as him are generally not willing to stay in this rundown village of Taoyuan. They usually leave the village and venture into life outside. And this original owner is not unwilling to go out and wander around, then act like a dog and return to the village to honor his ancestors. Mainly because he is too lazy to endure the hardships outside. Chapter 5. Accept new identity. Are you lazy and lazy? You are listening at novelfull.audio. 3 years ago, the original owner was also full of ideals and went out to explore life with a group of peers in the village. He has worked as a porter, shop assistant, and other professions at the dock in Taoyuan County, but none of the jobs he has done can last. If he doesn't work for 3 days, he will be fired by the boss. The reason why the original owner was fired was because he was too lazy. Every morning before 9 o'clock, he doesn't get up and is picky when working. He doesn't even want to do heavy or tiring work and often slacks off. Do you think any boss is willing to take someone like him in? After all, the boss spends money to hire people to work. The boss doesn't want a grandson to confess, nor does he want to hire an uncle, so he can only be fired. In this way, the original owner had been wandering outside for less than 2 months before returning to the village in a disheveled manner. It's not good if the original owner doesn't come back. When he left, his parents and family had almost spent 2 taels of silver given to him. If he doesn't go home, he probably will starve to death outside. The original owner knows this very well, so he can only grit his teeth, whether it's embarrassing or not, and go home first before speaking. Perhaps the parents of the original owner were also very aware of their son's virtues. So after his son returned from outside in a gloomy manner, the 2 elderly people didn't say much to the original owner except for sighing. Poor parents all over the world, and the parents of the original owner also know their son's virtues, so they no longer expect their son to take care of them in old age. The parents of the original owner even suspected that after being a couple for 100 years, their lazy son would probably not even be able to eat. My own son is lazy and has no ambition, so I won't talk about it. If we get married, we probably won't have the appearance of a head of the family. The first thing the original owner does every day when he opens his eyes is to ask Lin Mu for money, and then he goes to the tavern in the county town to relax. He is a unique seedling in the family. Lin's father and mother felt sorry for him and couldn't bear to hit or scold him. Apart from often sighing, they didn't even dare to say a few words about him. This made him even worse, and at the same time, his reputation became increasingly bad. People like the original owner would never be able to find a wife in the countryside. Moreover, Lin's parents were completely disappointed with the original owner, so the original owner's parents could only hope for their grandchildren. But if the 2 elders want to have grandchildren, they must first have a daughter.In.law. So through various relationships, the parents of the original owner bought a wife for their lazy son in the hands of a human trafficker. The parents of the original owner were both honest farmers. Although they did not understand the laws of the Tang Dynasty, they also knew that selling a wife was not illegal in the Tang Dynasty. Even if the emperor knows, he won't break the law and go to prison. Although a purchased wife is not as knowledgeable as a married wife. But the 2 elderly people also had no choice. After all, what kind of virtue their son was, and how many people in the 10 miles and 8 townships near Taoyuan village were unaware of it. Who would marry their daughter to such a lazy person? That would be a lifelong harm to their daughter. Even if the family is a little further away, it's not possible. After all, no one from that family is a fool. Before matchmaking, people would always ask someone in advance to inquire about the situation of the Lin Feng family in Taoyuan village, as well as the character and conduct of the original owner. This is also not something that can deceive others. So no one would marry their own daughter to a lazy person like the original owner. Of course, there are also several daughters from different families who are willing to marry the original owner, but the original owner's parents are not interested. Because for the parents of the original owner, there is only one son in their own family, and no matter how poor their son is, he is still a physically normal person. It is unacceptable for the Lin family to have their son marry a silly girl or a disabled girl. So the parents of the original owner could only grit their teeth and spent 20 taels of silver to buy a beautiful yellow flower girl from a human trafficker to be the daughter.In.law of the original owner. In fact, if it weren't for Huang Hua's daughter, a girl aged 17 or 8 would be priced at around 5 or 6 taels in Taoyuan County. However, for the relatively conservative parents of the original owner, they would rather spend more money than marry their son a beautiful young woman. Otherwise, after 100 years of old age, neither of them would have the face to meet the ancestors of the Lin family. Thanks to the father of the original owner's early years of wandering and saving, he accumulated a lot of savings. After Lin's father bought a beautiful daughter.In.law for his son, he also bought a 20-acre Yongye field from a household in the south of the village and distributed it to the original owner when dividing the family. But this also means that the savings saved by Lin's father and mother through years of frugality have not been fully utilized. Now, under the name of the original owner, the 20 acres of Yongye field distributed by the county after the separation, plus the 20 acres of Yongye field purchased by the original owner's parents and distributed to him after the separation. In this way, there are a total of 40 acres of permanent farmland under the original owner's name. And the original owner also had 60 acres of mountainous land in the back mountain, which can be considered as a significant inheritance left by Lin's father for his son and daughter.In.law. It should be noted that in the early Tang Dynasty, private buying and selling of Yongye farmland was generally not allowed, but it could be bought and sold under specific circumstances. Moreover, this is just how the Tang Dynasty regulations stipulated, but in reality, there are still many people in the Tang Dynasty who do not follow the regulations. Lin's father was lucky enough to meet a family like this, so he bought 20 acres of permanent farmland with silver. Because from the name Yangyiishan, it is known that in the early Tang Dynasty, a lifelong land system was implemented. Even if the parents passed away, this land can still be passed down to future generations. If you are male and born in the early Tang Dynasty, then when you reach adulthood at the age of 18, the court will allocate 100 acres of land to you. Among these 100 acres of land, 20 acres are called Yongye field, which can be passed on to future generations, equivalent to your family's private property. The other 80 acres of land, called kufenshan, will be returned to the court after you turn 60, which is equivalent to renting it to you for cultivation, but you will have to pay taxes. How much tax should I pay? Every year, every ding pays 2 grains of millet to the court, which is approximately 200 kilograms of millet in current measurement units. This tax can be said to be very light. The income tax payment ratio is approximately 40 kilograms per kilogram, which means that if you cultivate and harvest 40 kilograms of millet, you need to pay 1 kilogram of millet tax. In the Han Dynasty, the tax was 30 yuan per unit, and during the Zhenguan period of the Tang Dynasty, compared to the Han Dynasty, it had already been significantly reduced. The land allocated to farmers by the court is called rent. You can calculate in your mind, what is the concept of 100 acres of land? Well, a secure landlord. Although 80 acres of land will be returned to the court, the 20 acres of permanent farmland have been passed down through 3 generations, and your family also has 60 acres of private property. But please note that your family's Yongye field cannot be bought or sold at will. Unless encountering special circumstances such as the death of a household or the inability of a poor family to provide burial, one can sell permanent farmland. This may seem unfriendly, but in fact, it is a good thing for ordinary farmers. Because it is not allowed to sell land privately, firstly it can prevent land consolidation, and secondly, it can prevent those despicable sons who sell their land without caring about it from losing their property. After the war at the end of the Sui dynasty, when Li and Tang unified the country, the people were living in poverty, with a population of less than 3 million households, which was 2/3 less than the 9 million households at the peak of the Sui dynasty. The population sharply decreased and a large amount of farmland became barren, so the Tang dynasty continued the equal field system, distributing land to the people and providing light taxes, which led to a rapid recovery of production and a rapid increase in national strength. Lin's father didn't expect his son to have any great achievements, Even if the original owner eventually left the dilapidated small mountain village of Taoyuan and had the hundreds of acres of land in the village. Even if the original owner does not plant it themselves and rents it to someone else, they can still receive a rent of 7 or 8 taels per year. Although he is somewhat poor, he is not enough to starve his lazy son to death. Not long after, Lin Feng lay in bed and didn't think too much after receiving the memories of the original owner. Anyway, in the Tang Dynasty, he will be Lin Feng. Everything belonging to the original owner belongs to him, and Lin Feng is also very willing to accept everything from the original owner. Perhaps due to sleeping for a while, Lin Feng clearly felt much better, but the bed under him was too hard, making him feel uncomfortable. Sleeping in his waist seemed to be about to break. Gulu gulu, Lin Feng heard the protest of his stomach. What the hell? Anyway, the sky won't collapse, so we still need to eat. The person who cooks, the soul who cooks, is the person who cooks. Xiaoqing, I'm hungry. Is there anything else to eat at home? I've been sleeping all day now. Yesterday, the original owner only drank alcohol and didn't eat. Now I feel like my chest is touching my back, as if I've been haunted by a hungry ghost. So Lin Feng was scanning around the room. See what's edible. Lin Feng looked at the entire room and only saw a small thatched cottage. In addition to a rundown low table, a rundown cabinet with a closed door frame in the corner, and 3 or 2 pottery jars. And there were also several tattered straw mats placed on the ground, with some straw laid under them. There were also several tattered and dirty blankets on top of the mats, leaving nothing else. Lin Feng looked at the shabby appearance of this family and shed a bitter tear in his heart. In the future, this will be the residence where his parents will live for a lifetime, whether it is poor or rich, at least it can be considered a home. Brother, my parents have gone to work in the fields. Xiaoqing learned from his mother's appearance and reached out his dirty little hand, probing Lin Feng's forehead and then touching his own forehead to feel if his brother had a fever. Subsequently, the tense expression on his face relaxed. Brother, are you still thirsty? I'll go fetch you another bowl of water. Xiaoqing quickly got up and carried the pottery bowl with a few notches missing, then went to the stove to fetch half a bowl of water. Thank you, Xiaoqing. After Lin Feng sat up on the bed, he drank half a bowl of water in one breath and felt his soul returning to its rightful place. The hunger in my stomach has also slightly decreased, but there is still a slight cramp in my stomach. I feel a bit weak all over, and now it seems like I can eat a whole cow. Chapter 6. Searching for food, beautiful countryside scenery. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At this moment, Lin Feng thought of some time travel novels he had read in modern times, in which the protagonist of time travel would have a golden finger in his hand. Thinking of this, Lin Feng immediately immersed himself completely in his own world, constantly striving to search for his so-called golden finger. He had already fantasized that if he had the golden finger, he could live a better and happier life for himself and his family in this world. System, come out and let me see where you are. Lin Feng silently recited in his heart the various names that might appear on the golden finger, but no matter how he called them, he never saw the so-called golden finger, let alone any system interface. Has this golden finger not appeared yet? Or will it take some time or something specific to open? Alright, I'll check again in a few days. Lin Feng silently comforted himself in his heart, hoping that one day, his golden finger could be opened smoothly. Brother, is your head still hurting now? Xiaoqing looked at her brother's face, her eyebrows furrowed and loosened at times. She thought her brother's head was starting to hurt again. Xiaoqing, my head doesn't hurt anymore. I was just thinking about something earlier, you don't have to worry. After Lin Feng opened his eyes, he slowly regained consciousness and looked at Xiaoqing, who was looking at him with a nervous expression. He quickly explained to her. Xiaoqing, brother is going to get up and move his muscles and bones now. I'm also feeling a bit tired while lying down and sitting. After he finished speaking, he propped up his hands on the straw mat, ready to get up. He thought of the outside of this thatched cottage, breathing in the fresh air outside. "Brother, why don't you lie down? If you fall into a coma again, your parents will be very worried." Seeing this, Xiaoqing quickly reached out his little hand to support his brother's body. "Brother, it's okay. I just want to get up and move around for a while. This will also improve my health faster." Lin Feng's body was already thin and weak, and coupled with being struck by lightning yesterday, his body may have suffered unknown damage. In addition, he didn't eat for a day, so at this time, he appeared a bit weak and unable to control himself. Now he feels extremely hungry, so he wants to find something to eat and fill his stomach. Lin Feng wanted to get out of bed and go out to find food, but Xiaoqing couldn't stop her brother, so she had to agree. Then, under the worried gaze of Xiaoqing, Lin Feng slowly extended his feet and placed them on the ground. As soon as Lin Feng's two soles touched the ground, he instinctively jumped onto the bed again, which surprised Xiaoqing, who was watching from the side. It turned out that the ground was so cold and piercing that I couldn't get out of bed barefoot. "Where are my shoes?" Lin Feng looked at the uneven muddy ground. "I saw only a pair of grass shoes lying under the bed." Seeing this, Lin Feng covered his head and didn't know what to say for a moment. Because rebirth starts like this, he really can't accept it. But in the end, he compromised and sat at the head of the bed, starting to put on his grass shoes. After all, no matter what, even if he doesn't have a golden finger with him now, with the memories and life experiences he brought from his rebirth in the 21st century, Lin Feng believes that this is enough to enable him to change everything around him in a short period of time. If he couldn't even adapt to wearing grass shoes now, then he was afraid that in the agricultural era of the Tang Dynasty, he wouldn't even have the courage to survive. Lin Feng thought of his experience as a hunter and a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine before his travels. In this Tang Dynasty, where there are mountains and water, wild animals and thieves abound, and hunting is not illegal, one should be able to live a very fulfilling life. After my body recovers, as long as I am willing to work. If you want to get rid of the current predicament within the next 3 to 5 months, there should be no problem. Although that's the case, it's already 3 to 5 months from now. I am currently hungry, and I need to have something to eat right away, otherwise I will struggle with the strength from my hungry stomach. He thought of this, and Lin Feng, who had already put on his grass shoes, walked towards the entrance. After he approached, he opened the door and looked around. The scene that caught the eye, as expected, was not lined with towering buildings, let alone the prosperous era more than 1,000 years later. He felt a bit uncomfortable at the moment. Lin Feng walked slowly to the outside of the thatched cottage, and what caught his eye was the lush green. At this time, it is early summer, with lush trees, lush crops, and unknown small flowers blooming all over the mountains and fields. Lin Feng looked around, and not far from the left and right sides of Lin's father's and mother's thatched cottage, there were 10 or 2 scattered houses, just like his own father's and mother's thatched cottage. And the forest breeze in the further area is not clear to see, and these households are all villagers of Taoyuan village. And these villagers basically have to rely on the land under Lin Feng's feet to make a living. He knew that the fields in front of him belonged to the people of Taoyuan village. In the early Tang Dynasty, the population was already small, and there were also few people belonging to the entire Taoyuan county. It was impossible for the court to plant so much land, so they had to use the equal field system to distribute the land to the villagers for planting. After the villagers have to pay various grain taxes to the court every year, nearly half of the remaining grain is owned by the villagers themselves. The yield of grain per mu in the Tang Dynasty was generally not high, and the remaining half of the grain was only just enough for a family to eat. If there was a bad harvest year or natural disasters, it would be difficult to say. Fortunately, there is no need for corvée labor in the past 2 years, otherwise the villagers would not be able to make ends meet. He walked all the way, with thatched cottages and adobe houses irregularly distributed on both sides of the village road. Although Taoyuan village is surrounded by mountains and rivers, it still belongs to a remote and impoverished area, as the local people's utilization of mountains and waters is limited to meeting their daily needs. If someone wants to build a house, they will go up the mountain to chop down a few trees and drag them home to make beams. When there is no rice left to cook, I will go up the mountain to find some wild vegetables and fruits, then catch 2 small fish in the water and throw them into the pot, which is another simple meal. The feudal small-scale farming economy still relied on farmland for a living, and most villagers relied on their own 1 acre and 3/4 of land to feed themselves. There are only a few landlords who are relatively wealthy. Some wealthy villagers have already moved to Taoyuan County or towns. Landlords can rent out their fields and sell their crops. Once they have money, they can then buy land, creating a virtuous cycle. During the Zhenguan period, there were already signs of land consolidation. Poor families rely on their own output of 1 acre and 3/4 of land, which is not enough to fill their teeth. They can only rent land to grow. In addition, there was no policy in ancient times that could reduce land taxes, so ordinary farmers worked hard to grow food for a year. Apart from exorbitant taxes and land rent, it would be good if they could chew on their stomachs as a family. Whoosh, a cold wind blew in, causing Lin Feng, who was lost in thought, to instantly wake up. Although time travel is simple, the road ahead is long and arduous. Everything in the future will depend on him. Lin Feng felt a bit helpless when he thought about the actual situation at home that he had just seen. He really wanted to curse a few words against the sky, but he felt powerless and had no way to speak. I don't even know why the sky is so unfair to me. The online articles I have read about others being reborn and traveling are either princes or noble. And what about him? It's just a journey to this poor and dilapidated courtyard. Even if it's not a prince, at least it's still a scholar's identity. But what about now? The original owner was just a lazy and idle person. He, feeling helpless in his heart, didn't know what to do at this moment. He didn't eat and his body was weak, so he couldn't do any heavy work for the time being. You can only look at what you can eat at home first, fill your stomach, recover your body, and then make plans. On the other hand, Xiaoqing had been quietly watching his brother stand still at the door, motionless, as if he had been subjected to an immobilization spell, and suddenly felt very worried in his heart. Brother, what's wrong with you? Woo 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 woo. Xiaoqing stepped forward and tugged at Lin Feng's hem, shouting at her brother, afraid that his brother might be a demon. Brother, were you possessed just now? You can't have anything to do. Xiaoqing grabbed the hem of Lin Feng's clothes with one hand and wiped away her tears with the other, feeling even more worried in her heart. Xiaoqing, brother is not possessed, he is just a bit stunned. Lin Feng never expected that the moment he lost consciousness would scare this little girl. He felt a bit embarrassed to see others. After all, he still occupied the body of his brother. Xiaoqing, don't cry anymore. Brother is just hungry. Lin Feng rubbed his stomach and gurgled, drinking 2.5 bowls of water from early morning until now. It's strange not to be hungry. Xiaoqing, is there anything I can eat at home? And what do we have for breakfast? Lin Feng saw the gusts of cold wind outside, so he pulled Xiaoqing into the kitchen. Xiaoqing wiped away the tears from her face and nervously looked at her brother. After hearing Lin Feng's question, Xiaoqing knew that her brother had not eaten anything since yesterday, except for a little rice soup fed by Auntie. So Xiaoqing knew that her brother must have been starving, and in addition, he had been unconscious for another night, so he urgently needed some food to fill his stomach. Brother, what did you say you wanted to eat? Xiaoqing looked at her brother eagerly. This. Lin Feng hesitated for a moment and said, did they leave anything to eat before going to work in the fields? Even leftover food or wild vegetables are fine. This is all possible for him now. As long as he has a full meal, he believes that giving him a day's time should not be a problem in obtaining a large amount of food. No. Xiaoqing shook her head and said, Mom didn't leave anything. If you don't believe me, you can go to the stove and take a look yourself. Lin Feng persisted and asked, "Do you also have rice at home?" Xiaoqing nodded and said yes, but immediately continued, "All the rice at home is locked in Anyang's room. Now Dad and Anyang are working in the field and haven't come back yet. So she couldn't get the rice herself, so she couldn't bring the food to her brother to eat." Thinking of this, Xiaoqing timidly bit her index finger and looked at Lin Feng, saying, "Sorry, brother." Lin Feng smiled bitterly upon hearing this and said, "Silly sister, I didn't mean to blame you." He knew in his heart that this was because there was a shortage of food everywhere now, so it was normal for his mother at home to have a high regard for food. The phenomenon of shortage of clothing and food is common in Taoyuan village. The reason for this situation is not due to the laziness of the villagers. But it was because of the severe drought in the second half of last year, which resulted in many of the farmland rented by everyone having no harvest. In such circumstances, it is actually a miracle that Taoyuan village can survive to the present day without starving to death. Chapter 7. Red Fruit. Toxic. Snakeberry, for freshness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He only then realized that his family was now in ruins, and there wasn't even much food to fill his stomach. "Brother, there's nothing to eat at home right now. We can only wait for a while. After Dad and Mom finish their work in the fields and come back, Mom can cook lunch for you. Brother, please bear it a little longer." Brother knows now. He'll go find something to eat on his own. His stomach is really hungry, and he's almost so hungry that his chest is pressing against his back. "I can't bear it anymore." Lin Feng looked at his emaciated body and didn't know if it was a blessing or a curse, perhaps it was an indescribable helplessness. Xiaoqing stood by and heard that his brother wanted to find something to eat, but he was afraid that his brother would open Anyang's door and cook the food at home. "After letting my parents know, I will definitely feel sorry for a long time, even though I know my brother wouldn't do this before." But this moment was not the same, because after her brother woke up in the morning, Xiaoqing vaguely felt that her brother's temperament had changed a bit. For example, the way my brother was enchanted just now made Xiaoqing's worries even more intense. "Brother, there is a certain amount of food in the family. My mother will measure and cook porridge every day. Brother knows he won't tamper with the food at home." He had just been thinking of searching at home and seeing if there was anything edible to eat, so he could first cushion his stomach. The little girl beside her said this to herself, which can be considered as rejecting Lin Feng's desire to find food at home. So Lin Feng can only think of other ways. He didn't immediately return to the thatched cottage because the little girl next to him said so. How could he have the courage to look for something to eat at home now? So Lin Feng lifted his legs and walked towards the mountain behind the house. Xiaoqing saw her brother walking towards the back mountain, and although she was particularly curious, her worried expression on her face remained unchanged. She quickly followed her brother's buttocks with her short legs, reminding him to pay attention to his health while walking. Although the little girl's chatter made Lin Feng feel a bit helpless. But he also knew that he had picked up a big advantage and taken advantage of his brother's body. Moreover, it is the body of a young man in his 20s, which means that Lin Feng has been revived for a lifetime. Along the way, Lin Feng relied on his previous life as a hunter and knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine to see many edible wild vegetables, as well as some edible tender shoots and small fruits on the roadside. But the unarmed Lin Feng is powerless to dig up these wild vegetables to eat. So, feeling helpless, I had to pick some edible tender shoots and chew them in my mouth on the roadside, and then find some wild fruits to eat. This can also alleviate hunger in one's stomach, as modern research has shown that many wild fruits have high nutritional value for the human body. Xiaoqing followed behind Lin Feng, watching his brother. At first, he kept picking some unknown tender shoots and buds, and without hesitation, he stuffed them into his mouth and began to chew, looking like a cow eating grass. Xiaoqing was afraid that her brother might be a demon again, so she quickly spoke up to stop her brother from doing so. "Brother, this leaf bud cannot be eaten, it is poisonous." Xiaoqing, who was speaking, reached out her dirty little hand and grabbed her brother's clothes, wanting to prevent him from picking those poisonous tender shoots to eat. But Lin Feng ignored Xiaoqing's words and never stopped picking tender shoots in his hand. Xiaoqing, it's okay. Lin Feng used his knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine in his mind to recognize that these tender shoots and buds were edible, with only a slight bitterness. And he just saw a few snake-soaked seeds on the roadside, with wild fruit trees covered in bright red fruits. Lin Feng knew that this kind of fruit could also be eaten, as long as it was picked and washed. Decesnia indica, and Faca, also known as snake bubble seed, snake bubble grass, dragon spit pearl, three-clawed wind, nose blood fruit, pearl claw, snake fruit, chicken crown fruit, wild strawberry, snake rib, earthberry, silkworm berry, three-point red, lion tail, wound healing medicine, snake egg fruit, Dijin, three-pifeng, snake bubble grass, three-clawed wind, three-clawed dragon, old snake bubble, snake roan grass, three-legged tiger, snake skin vine, snake eight pets, longjuzu, strawberry, and yangmei. Snake missing, golden cicada grass, three-leaf serper, old snake sting zhan, old snake grass, dragon ball grass, snake grape, snake fruit vine, snake pillow, snake containing grass, snake plate grass, haha fruit, snake fruit, nine dragon grass, three pie grass, snake pony, snake turtle grass, falling yangmei, red top fruit, blood boiled grass, wild strawberry. The identification method for it is also very simple. Judging from its shape, snake-soaking seeds are mostly wrapped in clusters, covered in white fur, with creeping stems and alternating leaves. 3 compound leaves. The petiole of the basal leaves is 6.10 centimeters long, and the small leaves are mostly wrinkled. The intact ones are obovate, 1.5.4 centimeters long and 1.3 centimeters wide. The base is skewed, with blunt teeth on the edge. The surface is yellow-green, almost hairless on the top, and sparsely hairy on the bottom. Flowers solitary in leaf axils, with long stalks. Aggregated fruit is brownish-red, with small achenes and persistent sepals. Mild chi, slightly astringent taste. This type of fruit is found all over the country, growing in the fields, along small roads, in the mountains and forests. The whole grass can be used as medicine, resembling strawberries, but much smaller than strawberries. Because snakes often spit out bubbles, they are often called snake bubbles in rural areas. Snake bubbles are raw and tasteless, with a sweet and cold nature. Eating them can clear heat and detoxify, as well as detoxify snakes. It can also treat various diseases such as oral ulcers in children. Due to the cold nature of the whole plant and fruit, cold diseases should be avoided. Brother, this snake bubble is really inedible, it's really poisonous. Xiaoqing saw her brother pointing at the snake puddle on the ground, released the small hand that was pulling at the corner of her clothes, and hurriedly ran over, quickly and fiercely stepping on the snake puddle on the ground. At the same time as stepping on it, I didn't forget to forcefully twist and turn, crushing all these snake bubbles and making them pale and inedible. Chapter 8. Dr. Li. This snake bubble cannot be eaten. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I'll go, you little girl's movements are too fast. Walk aside for me. Lin Feng watched as Xiaoqing, barefoot, had already crushed the snake bubbles on the ground. I suddenly felt very helpless in my heart. This is the food I found, it had already disappeared before it was delivered to my mouth. That anger in my heart. He directly reached out and pulled Xiaoqing aside, then crouched down and began picking up the snake bubbles that had not yet been trampled by Xiaoqing. Brother, this kind of fruit cannot be eaten. It is poisonous. If you are poisoned to death, what should I do? Xiaoqing saw her brother pick up the snake bubbles on the ground, and she was worried that her brother would be poisoned because he had eaten these snake bubbles. She didn't know how to explain it to her parents. Xiaoqing's eyes showed a look of unwillingness, and she tugged hard at the corner of Lin Feng's clothes, desperately trying to grab her brother. Speaking of raspberries, they may be childhood memories of the older generation of modern people. The reason why Xiaoqing was so nervous and said that the snakeberry was poisonous may be that before the Tang Dynasty, people did not recognize this type of fruit. Someone happened to see the venomous snake crawling over the raspberry, and then saw the bright red color of the raspberry, thinking that this fruit was poisonous. Then, through word of mouth, everyone believed it to be true and believed that this red fruit was poisonous. So when they were young, parents in the village would often warn children that this kind of raspberry is poisonous and must not be eaten. They should also avoid it when touched. So now, Xiaoqing is also afraid to avoid these raspberries and sees them as poisonous snakes and beasts. Lin Feng thought to himself, actually, looking at the appearance of the snakeberry alone really has a hint of a clear and beautiful appearance. The red fruits paired with green branches and leaves, like strawberries, make people drool and want to take a bite when they see them. Especially after a night rain last night, the fruit and branches of the raspberry were washed clean. At this time, the raspberry was simply irresistible. Snakeberries are rich in vitamins and carbohydrates. Snakeberries are not a delicious fruit. Although they are brightly colored and tempting, in reality, their taste is not sweet, but rather bland and average in taste. Moreover, excessive consumption can pose a risk of poisoning, so although raspberries can be consumed in small quantities, they are not necessary as fruits and should be consumed in moderation. So Lin Feng said to Xiaoqing, "Little girl, this is called snakeberry. Eating some is not a big deal, and it won't cause any poisoning. Can you calm down a bit now? Let your brother take a bite. I'm really hungry now." He was tugged at by the little girl behind him, but fortunately, Xiaoqing was small, so his strength was also weak. Otherwise, he would have been pulled to the ground by her. Just as Xiaoqing was pulling Lin Feng, the two of them were deadlocked. "Lin's little child, stop it quickly. These fruits are all snake-soaked fruits that have been crawled by venomous snakes. If you really want to eat them in your stomach, it will be a big deal of either injury or death." Suddenly, a loud shout came from a distance, startling Lin Feng, who was still picking up snake bubbles. He almost shook off the snake bubbles he was holding in his hand. After seeing Dr. Li walking not far away, Xiaoqing quickly bypassed her brother and reached out her little feet with a few clicks, trampling on the few remaining snake bubbles. After hearing the sound, Lin Feng lifted his head and looked towards the source of the sound. He saw an old man wearing a blue linen uniform slowly walking towards him, with a medicine box hanging on his back and a wooden stick in his hand. Lin Feng knew from his memory that the person who came was Dr. Li from Taoyuan town. So he smiled and said, "Hello, Dr. Li. I really wanted to thank you last night, Dr. Li. You came over to treat me in the middle of the night. Now my head is just a little painful when I woke up this morning. It's no longer painful and there's nothing serious. I think I just need to rest for a few more days to fully recover." But Dr. Li didn't believe what Lin Feng said. Dr. Li insisted on seeing it himself to rest assured, so Lin Feng had to stretch his wrist to let Dr. Li help him diagnose it clearly. After a while, Dr. Li said, "Well, it's good. You've recovered quite well. Remember to be careful when working in the future. Also, you can't pick and eat these snake seeds anymore." Dr. Li looked at Lin Feng's head and touched his pulse, feeling his essence and spirit. After giving Lin Feng a warning, he walked towards the path step by step. Xiaoqing said to Lin Feng, "Brother, Dr. Li doesn't charge any money for his treatment, but he has to work for the clinic or use food to offset it." Xiaoqing kept looking at Dr. Li's receding figure without looking back, let alone seeing Lin Feng at this moment. He was carefully picking up some slightly better snake bubbles that had not yet been completely trampled on. That's it. In the modern concept of Lin Feng, this is a very normal thing. Treating illnesses inevitably requires payment. If there is really no money to collect, then things can only be used as a substitute. So when Lin Feng heard Xiaoqing's words, he didn't feel anything strange and continued to pick up the snake bubbles on the ground. "Brother, didn't Dr. Li tell you earlier? He told you not to eat these snake bubbles anymore, and Dr. Li also said that these snake bubbles are poisonous. Xiaohua turned around and saw Lin Feng picking up snake bubbles on the ground. She tugged at Lin Feng again with both hands, preventing him from picking them. Lin Feng saw the situation and said, let go quickly. You little girl, I just told you something earlier. This kind of snake bubble is edible. As long as you don't eat too much at once, you won't get poisoned. Lin Feng was pulled by Xiaoqing and was about to fall to the ground. He quickly stopped Xiaoqing, and now he can finally fill some of his stomach. Xiaoqing still doesn't believe what her brother said, stubbornly believing that snake-soaked seeds cannot be eaten. So he loudly said to Lin Feng, brother, you really can't eat it. Dr. Li has just mentioned that these snake bubbles have been crawled by venomous snakes. If you get poisoned, my parents and I will be worried. Xiaoqing had completely disregarded it and tightly grasped Lin Feng's clothes, desperately pulling back. Lin Feng said to Xiaoqing, you little girl, what do you know so little? Your brother, I haven't lived enough and don't want to die yet. Alright, I won't pick it anymore, let's go. At this moment, Lin Feng's stomach was already cramping from hunger, and he couldn't care about the common sense and cognition of people in this era. He just wanted to fill his stomach as soon as possible, which was his top priority. But Lin Feng was already somewhat helpless by the little girl's disturbance, so he had to stand up, turn around, and go to the nearby stream. He started washing the snake bubbles one by one, while also throwing a few into his mouth and eating them. Chapter 9. Eating Wild Fruits. Pick up firewood. Seeking flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Brother, I really can't eat it. After seeing it, Xiaoqing was so nervous that she almost suffocated. She watched as her brother ate the snake bubbles into her stomach, but she couldn't stop them. Xiaoqing originally wanted to snatch these snake bubbles from her brother's hand, but was blocked by his own brother's hand. Xiaoqing had no choice but to wipe away her tears while hoping that her brother wouldn't die from poisoning after eating these snake seeds. It doesn't have much smell, it's cool. Lin Feng chewed on the snake bubble in his mouth, feeling its taste on his taste buds. He didn't feel very delicious, so he could only quickly throw all the remaining snake bubbles into his mouth, chew them up, and then stand up after eating. Fortunately, there are these snake bubbles to cushion the stomach, otherwise it would always feel like a fight inside. Xiaoqing watched helplessly as her brother ate the snake-soaked seeds. Brother, don't eat anymore, you know. Alright, brother won't eat anymore. Let's look for anything else to eat. Lin Feng quickly shifted the topic to avoid this little girl constantly worrying about this matter and adding trouble to herself. Xiaoqing saw that her brother had promised not to pick those poisonous snake bubbles anymore, and her heart finally let go. However, when she heard that her brother was going to find something else to eat, Xiaoqing was afraid that his brother would go eat some more poisonous things. So Xiaoqing continued to follow behind her brother's buttocks, murmuring incessantly in her mouth. Sigh, Xiaoqing let out a deep sigh and then thought to herself, brother, I'm not sure if he'll be poisoned to death after eating snake seeds. If Rui really gets poisoned to death, what will she do? However, Xiaoqing thought for a moment and said, brother should be fine. He just ate a small handful, but if he eats those snake bubbles again in the future, I must tell his mother and let her spank him. Xiaoqing couldn't help but burst into a silly smile when she thought of the scene of her brother being beaten up and jumping around by his parents. Lin Feng, who was walking ahead, couldn't hear Xiaoqing's murmuring from behind. At this moment, Lin Feng turned his head and looked around. As long as it was edible, he would always pick some and throw it into his mouth. Of course, during this period, two other common and edible small fruits were also found, Schisandra, and Big Blush. Schisandra is a fruit that looks somewhat similar to mountain grapes, but when mountain grapes ripen, they turn black, while this fruit turns red when ripe. Although this fruit doesn't taste so sweet, it even has a strange taste. But the nutritional value of this fruit is very high, even the seeds inside it have high nutritional value because their seeds can be ground into powder, and then they can be washed and used for drinking in winter. Big blush is a wild fruit that modern city dwellers may not have seen many people, but their presence still occasionally appears in the mountains because its fruit has a very short ripening period. So it is also rare in modern markets, so there are very few people in the city who know it. In summer, there is a unique cicada, and when this cicada starts calling, the fruit also ripens. If you find that the fruit is ripe on the first day, then hurry up and pick it, otherwise it will fall to the ground the next day, and the nutrition of this fruit is also very high. Lin Feng also picked some and handed it to Xiaoqing, who was following behind him to taste. As for these two types of fruits, Xiaoqing didn't say much when she saw her brother picking them, because she knew these two types of fruits herself and had often eaten them with her mother before. Half an hour later, Lin Feng finally had something in his stomach to support him, and his body also gained strength. Although these are just some tender branches, leaves, small fruits, and so on, overall they can still fill his stomach. It's just a lack of more meat calories, but fortunately they can cushion his stomach, so it won't make his stomach always growl. Brother, let's go home. My parents will be back soon after finishing their work. If they can't see us, they will definitely be very worried. Along the way, Xiaoqing also ate the small fruits that Lin Feng picked for her. Xiaoqing also had some inventory in her stomach, but the sun was already high. Okay, Xiaoqing, we'll go back now, but after you go back, don't tell your parents why we went. Under the reminder of Xiaoqing, Lin Feng lifted his head and looked around. The dense jungle was covered with thorns, and there were countless tall thatches, which made their journey difficult. In the quiet dense forest, birds and insects chirped from time to time, and sunlight penetrated through the gaps in the leaves. Lin Feng remembered from the original owner's memory that wild beasts had hurt people in the village before, and suddenly shuddered violently. Immediately, he quickly and carefully retreated from the mountains and forests with Xiaoqing, feeling a bit nervous all the way. Because I don't have any weapons on my body now, if I unfortunately encounter a beast, then I and Xiaoqing will be the delivery men who deliver meat to the beast's door for a tooth sacrifice. After 2 or 3/4 of an hour, Lin Feng and Xiaoqing finally walked out of the mountains and forests. Fortunately, there were no surprises or dangers along the way. He was about to walk towards his parents' house when Lin Feng was stopped by Xiaoqing. Brother, parents will come back to make lunch after finishing their work. We happen to be at the edge of the mountains and forests now, so we can go pick up some firewood to go back because there isn't much firewood at home now. Xiaoqing lifted her head and looked at her brother, saying, Okay, let's go pick up some firewood and go home first. After listening to Xiaoqing's words, Lin Feng remembered that his parents didn't store too much firewood at home. He needed to pick up some firewood every other day or two to cook congee and soup at home. So Lin Feng and Xiaoqing picked up a large bundle of dead tree branches and firewood on the edge of the mountain forest, then pulled some weeds, twisted them into grass ropes, and tied them up, then carried them on their own shoulders. The same goes for Xiaoqing beside her, holding a small bundle of withered tree branches. The siblings then walked towards home with their legs crossed. When the two of them returned home, they put the firewood they had brought back into the stove. When Lin Feng and his siblings returned home, Lin Xuan and his wife had not yet returned home. Lin Feng wanted to help the family, but there was nothing else to do at home. So he slowly walked out of the house and walked to the small river in front of him. He brought a smooth stone from the river and brushed away the fine dust on the surface of the stone. Until the stone was completely clean, he squatted by the river and vigorously washed his hands. After finishing all of this, he sat on the stone, bored and dazed, but with some thoughts in his heart. After looking at Lin Feng, Xiaoqing approached her brother and found a stone to sit next to him. The two of them leaned against each other, making it seem that this poor family finally had a rare warmth. Chapter 10. Era. Zhenguan Li Shimin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lin Feng, who recovered from sitting on a large stone, learned from organizing the memories of his past and present body that the current era is probably during the Zhenguan period of the Tang Dynasty in a parallel world. As a traveler, what matters most is undoubtedly the era and time. Lin Feng quickly had the answer in his mind. The second year of the Zhenguan reign in the Tang Dynasty. After the prosperity of the Han Dynasty, the Han people began to decline until the 5 barbarians were in chaos, and the sons and daughters of the Han family dared not breathe under the iron hooves of other ethnic groups. After the Wei, Jin, Southern and Northern dynasties, the Northern Zhou dynasty swept the world and became the Sui dynasty. However, the Sui dynasty only passed down the second emperor, which is even worse than the strong Qin dynasty. The world was once again in turmoil. In just 1 year, the Tang dynasty rose and the mountains and rivers calmed down. After the Xuanwu Gate incident, Emperor Taizong ascended the throne and changed his reign name to Zhenguan. How to say it? Traversing is very tragic, but traveling to the Tang dynasty, not to the chaotic times of war and the people's livelihoods, is already considered a fortunate thing in misfortune. The Tang dynasty can be said to be one of the most prosperous dynasties in Chinese history, and the prosperous era of the Han and Tang dynasties is not just a boast. The era name Zhenguan is also very familiar to Lin Feng, Tang Taizong Li Shimin. As is well known, the governance of Zhenguan is rare in history, and the name of Tang, Taizong, is as well known as thunder in the hearts of later Chinese people. Living in this era, peace and stability, abundant clothing and food should not be a problem, right? As for what the second year of Zhenguan meant, Lin Feng had no deep impression. Most likely, it is now that His Majesty Li Heir has just ascended the throne and proclaimed himself emperor. The Tang dynasty was a period of shortage of soldiers and food. After the turmoil of the former Sui dynasty until now, it can be said that His Majesty Li Heir is in dire straits. If history doesn't deviate, there will be a serious locust plague in another 2 years. In addition, the floods in Hunan province and Hedong province have made it difficult for the people of the Tang dynasty to live a comfortable life in the following years. Lin Feng silently felt sorry for the common people of the Tang dynasty for 3 seconds in his heart. But is this related to oneself? At least not yet. Because I can't take care of my family now, there's no energy left to manage other things. The village where Lin Feng is currently located is not small, with over 200 households. It is located in Yuzhou and is under the jurisdiction of Taoyuan Town, Taoyuan County. Note: it is purely fictional and only intended to add a little fun to the readers. If there are any discrepancies with historical events and characters, please do not blame the reader. This book will always use the name of Taoyuan County to avoid the trouble of changing the place name back and forth. Readers are kindly advised to understand. It is far from the capital city of Chang'an, over 1,600 miles away. Taoyuan village is surrounded by mountains on both sides and facing the sea on the other side, making it a great place to be by the mountains and the sea. During the famine, Taoyuan village and all surrounding villages did not starve to death, thanks to this mountain and that sea. The village used to have no name. Initially, during the Southern and Northern dynasties period over 100 years ago, a family migrated from the distant southern Jiannan road to Chengdu prefecture to avoid the slaughter and plunder of the Turks. Fortunately, they found this fertile plain located near Taoyuan County. From 2 or 3 households to a dozen or so households, until the last 200 or so households gathered and lived together, several respected elderly residents met to discuss and named the village Taoyuan, expressing the villagers' hope to live like the life described in Lin Feng's previous Chinese book, Taoyuan Ji, which is a happy and fulfilling wish of the villagers. Later, the Sui dynasty unified the world, ending years of chaos. The name of Taoyuan village was officially recorded by the government, and this name has continued until the current Zhenguan period of the Tang dynasty. Because the people in Taoyuan village have all migrated from Chengdu prefecture, the elderly and children in this village can speak and listen to Sichuan dialect. However, because they have been migrating for so long, the villagers have also integrated into the northern Taoyuan County and learned the language of this place. Therefore, the villagers only occasionally speak Sichuan dialect. What is more important in the hearts of the people who are avoiding war than the 4 words, leisurely and carefree? Taoyuan Village is a very backward village in Taoyuan County of the Tang Dynasty, famous for planting a large number of peach trees. Of course, this reputation is only a small one in this area of Taoyuan County. As for Taoyuan County, few people would probably know about this dilapidated and impoverished village. Taoyuan Village is located under the largest mountain range in Hebei Province, approximately in modern times. The geographical location is very remote. The dirt road from the village to the county was built together by the surrounding villages 10 years ago. Due to the remote nature of the village, in order to save costs, only a winding and narrow dirt road was built, which is very dangerous. It is usually easier for people to carry things. If a carriage travels this way, the speed is usually not too fast, and there are no carriages that dare to walk on rainy and foggy days, afraid of accidentally falling off. Underneath this dirt road is a random rocky beach with a drop of 20.30 meters. If it falls, it will definitely result in death or injury. But in such a poor and remote place, there won't be many carriages walking on this dirt road all year round, so when repairing the road, there was no consideration given to whether a spacious carriage could walk. The entire Taoyuan village is a family of people, all surnamed Lin, who is one of the 100 surnames in China. The entire Taoyuan village originally had over 200 households and a population of about 1,000, making it a relatively large village in the surrounding areas. However, as many young people in the village went to war 10 years ago, the number of people in the village decreased. Many people lost their lives in the war because they worked in the army outside. Some other people who did well moved their homes from Taoyuan village. In 10 years, a large village with over 200 households has now become a dilapidated village with only over 100 households and around 500 people. To put it bluntly, most of the people left behind are elderly, while there are not many young people, especially young men who rarely go out to work in the village all year round. Lin Feng's mind is very chaotic now, and he still has some discomfort with his young body. He always feels uncomfortable all over. Undeniably, this is a healthy body, young, and energetic. However, it is still too unfamiliar after all. From my own body, to every blade of grass and every tree in my sight, to the entire pure agricultural society that seemed inferior to primitive society in Lin Feng's eyes, it was as unfamiliar as if I was in a dream, and I seemed to be just a passerby, watching all the sadness and joy in this world with cold eyes. Immersed in complex thoughts, Lin Feng sat by the small river for an unknown amount of time, until the sun gradually shrouded under the sky, and before he knew it, it was noon. Lin Feng finally regained his senses and looked up at the sky, sighing. It was time to go back for dinner. He stood up at this thought and walked towards his parents' house with Xiaoqing. Although there is such a gambling, drinking, and hitting his wife's body, it is still the body of his own life. I can't starve him to death.